What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin coming to you from the Big Blue Nation once again. And today, I was going to talk to you about a particular bonsai. I believe a lot of you all have probably seen it in stores under the Tree of Enchantment. This is, I believe it's called Salix, caprea, pendula. And that's really from the long, kind of flowing, arcing branches that you see on here. I mean, this tree is truly spectacular. It's beautiful. After a long, cold, dark winter, you get to the store and you see a tree like this, you think, oh, well, that reminds me a lot of spring. And it does. I mean, it's getting its beautiful green foliage on here. It's got its catkins, the beautiful yellow, kind of whitish flowers. I mean, the tree really is something to behold. I love it a lot. It's so pretty. This is actually my second one too. The first one I got about a year ago and I killed it straight out of the gate. I didn't know what I was doing with it or anything. This year when I got it, I did a little bit more research on it and watched a little bit more videos, talked to a couple of friends that have had it, and I think I've got a pretty good finger on it, or a good hand on it rather. I'm not gonna jinx myself, but I think I might have it under control. From what I hear, this guy likes a lot of humidity, a lot of moisture, and then a lot of sunlight as well. So fingers crossed. I will keep you updated and let you know, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about it and kind of explain where I went wrong with my last one versus about how it needs to be taken care of now and what you can do for it. And as you can see, it is actually in the same pot that it came in, just about a little 6-inch rubber terracotta looking pot. I paid $19.99, it was about 20 bucks. Got it at Myers. And this tree, first and foremost, is a graft. This is, you know, like I said, the American Pussy Willow. It goes by Goat Willow, Great Swallow, Gray Willow. There's really all kinds of names out there for it, common names as well. But as I was saying, this is Salix, caprea, pendula. But like I said, you will see it at stores, home improvement stores, grocery stores. And like I was saying, right here in this kind of crease right here, this is the graft area. Now what they've done is they've taken the top kind of part off of a Pussy Willow and grafted it on a regular rootstock right here. And a rootstock is just basically any kind of tall branch that they can put the top part on. That will actually kind of do better for the tree. So it's got strong rootstock that'll actually kind of keep it down in the ground and make sure the tree actually does fairly well for what it is. So this tree actually can go outside. From what I hear, it does tolerate cold winters fairly well. But since it is a graft, that means it's not going to get too tall. It basically is a dwarf kind of tree. So it's perfect for bonsai, and it's perfect for an indoor plant as well. Now you'll just remember that it is a tree first and foremost, so it's gonna need as much sunlight as it can. Bonsais are not meant to be kept in your house for a long period of time. Mostly what people do, they'll keep them outside in the growing season, even spring and fall, and let the tree soak up as much sunlight as it can, and only bring it in sporadically for maybe special occasions, birthdays, Christmas. It needs to be inside for the winter time, or at least kind of plant it in the ground. Some people even will bury the pot in the ground. That way the tree will be outside, kind of exposed, and go through its dormancy period, but kind of buried in the ground so that the roots won't freeze. But other than that, this guy loves the light. It really does. So if you do plant it in the yard, or you're going to keep it as a bonsai, you should know that it needs at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. So make sure if it's gonna be inside for the winter time, you need to have artificial lighting, or at least a southern facing window, kind of in a bright area, but not direct sunlight. I would probably place it in a south facing window with maybe a lace curtain and kind of watch it. If you've got it in a place where it gets really hot in the afternoon sun, that might take a lot of energy out of it and kind of zap the leaves. So as I was saying, they do love their humidity, so make sure you miss this guy. I just stuck him in the bathtub and hosed him down and soaked him and put a lot of water in here. Now it comes with a saucer under here, so I took that off. It's got a lot of really well drainage holes in the bottom, so water will come straight in and go straight out. You don't want to kind of leave it around, let it drain, but they could be in kind of boggy conditions, meaning they do have a lot of water in the substrate, possibly kind of around a pond or a lake. That's kind of where they're typically found kind of in nature as well. They do like a lot of water, so make sure that the humidity or the location that you have it in is going to be an area where water kind of drains or at least runs kind of next to it, so the plant does get a lot of water and a lot of humidity. Other than that, I've talked to a lot of friends that have had this tree and planted this tree, and they were telling me that they'll plant it in a place that gets a lot of sunlight, maybe 6, 7, or 8 hours a day, but not a lot of humidity, and the plant does poorly. They've always told me they've had to dig it back up and plant it in an area that kind of maybe runs next to a creek or by the pond or something like that. So be warned, this guy's going to take up a lot of water. And it's going to take up a lot of sunlight too, so just keep that in mind as well. And while I'm on the subject, substrate, with any kind of plant, I will always tell you, use kind of a sandy kind of consistency with soil. That way it's fast draining, has a lot of perlite in it. That will basically keep any plant happy. Now there are a specific few that it won't really do well with. This tree, it won't. If you keep this guy in really sandy kind of soil, first of all, it's not going to grow as tall or as well as it should, but they'll do fine in a sandy kind of soil. But they would prefer a soil that's kind of more compacted, maybe has a little bit more clay in it. So I would say kind of a good bonsai soil ought to work for this plant. You can have a little bit of sand in there, but it's not necessary. These plants do like to be kind of packed in, packed down, and not your typical kind of cacti, succulent, citrus substrate that I've always used on any of my other plants or cacti. I just am going to keep it in the substrate or soil that it's in now, and I probably won't repot it until about the springtime. Now it's the first week of February here, so I'd say about another month, and then I'll move this guy back outside. And I'll repot it. With any kind of trees as a bonsai, as I'm getting them established, I generally like to keep them in kind of a larger pot. The more soil that they have or substrate, the more kind of mass that they're going to be able to put on. And if they've got an immediate kind of pot that's really small and really cramped, they won't really be able to pack on any nutrients or anything like that. So when I do repot him, I'll put him in at least a gallon-sized pot, maybe bigger. I will post an updated video on that and let you guys know how it's turned out, what I've done, what I've found out about it. But I will be repotting it, and the roots on this guy are fairly tricky. Since it was a grafted plant, the roots on these guys are typically kind of in like a bag or something, kind of like a root ball kind of mesh. So it is kind of fairly hard to get to the root ball, but it can be done. You just gotta work at the soil a little bit and kind of chip it away. And really just kind of be patient while you're going at it. It will take a little bit of time to kind of break it out. I'm sure it's really root bound right now, so it's gonna kind of be a little bit of a problem. But I mean, like I said, it's a beautiful plant. It's a great specimen. It looks really good. So I'm really proud to kind of have this plant back again, and I really want to do well. I mean, you really can't beat these beautiful branches and these little stems coming in. With these flowers, catkins. I mean, the thing looks beautiful, and I hope I can actually keep it as a bonsai for a while. A lot of people say with grafts they can be tricky and maybe harder, but I am fairly excited about it, and I can't wait to see it take off, and I can't wait to make another updated video on this guy because I think he'll be pretty beautiful. Now, these American pussy willows, I believe there's 3 in the family. Salicacia is how it's pronounced. And these plants in particular are known as a dioecious plant that has separate male and female parts. I believe with the flowers, the yellower kind of parts like this are male from the pollen. And typically on the female ones, theirs are green, kind of just from the green color to the flowers. But if you have one that is mostly yellow, it's fairly safe to say that that tree is going to be a male. And if you have one with a kind of green on them, you've probably got a female one on you. So that's just a little FYI for you, a way to kind of figure that out. Now these plants, some are found in North America and Canada. Some are kind of found over in Europe and Asia, and I believe a little bit are kind of even in the North African continent. But as I was saying, in the family Salicaceae, there are 3 of the pussy willows. The first one is Salix discolored. That's the American pussy willow, the one that's pretty much the smaller of the 3. It's found in more northern temperate kind of areas, like North America on the eastern side, on up into Canada a good little bit. The American pussy willow looks similar to this, but it's got the red kind of flowers. I believe the red kind of parts where the flowers open, that's more of a red color. And like I said, the tree is kind of smaller than this one. The second one is the one that I have right here, and that's the Salix caprea, and this is a sub variety of Salix caprea. It's called Salix caprea pendula, and it's got the name pendula from its long kind of flowing arcing branches that make up this beautiful pussy willow. And this one is kind of a moderate sized one between the 3. And the third one is Salix cinerea, and that is known as the gray willow, and it's the largest of the 3. And I believe as a mature tree, those can get up to about 49 feet in height. Yeah, just depending on the actual species you have. As I was saying, the first one is fairly small. This one's kind of a moderate one. I don't believe it gets any higher than about 15 to maybe 20-25 feet. And then the discolor, the Salix discolor, one gets about the same. I believe the highest it can really kind of arch out is to about 49 feet. So they are on the smaller side of trees, or large shrubs rather, but if you keep them pruned back, you can actually keep the tree shape on them. But if you do have them out in the yard, they won't be too large of a tree. Maybe somewhere a little smaller than a dogwood, something like that. And they're kind of, well, I know for this guy, they don't get any wider than about a 12 to 15 foot spread. So when that's fully grown, that's about as big as they're going to get. Now, these trees can tolerate partial shade, especially if they're in kind of a hotter climate. But they do want to be in full direct sunlight, but they can kind of tolerate the partial shade as well. And as a personal note, any kind of these pussy willows, if you do plant them in the yard, make sure you don't put them anywhere near any kind of pipes or sewage systems, septic tanks, or anything like that, because the roots can burrow down deep and they will break through pipe walls. So you need to be careful with that as well whenever you're planting this tree. Always plant prudently. And as I was saying, with temperatures on the inside, you want to just make sure that they're away from any heating vents, cold drafty windows or doors. But they can tolerate the cold fairly well. So if this tree is experiencing cold temperatures, it's probably going to go dormant. And if the tree does go dormant, it doesn't require as much light, and it doesn't require as much water as well. So that's something you can kind of look out for too. If you do want the tree to go dormant, nice place to put it. If you can't bury it outside and you don't want to actually let the roots in the pot freeze, you could place the plant in a shed or your garage if it's unheated, or your basement to keep it kind of cool and dark. And if they are, you only need to water the plants about every 2 to 3 weeks just to kind of give them a little wake up quench if they are dormant. But if you keep them under artificial light or in a really warm location, maybe in your bedroom window or something like that, probably will kind of stay on the regular kind of thirsty drinking side. So make sure you take that into consideration as well. Now, Pest. Imported willow leaf beetle, I believe is what it's called, can be a problem with these guys. Caterpillars, aphids, and scale. Scale can run rampant with these guys. So if you see anything that kind of looks kind of out of the ordinary on any of these branches or on the center stalk, it will be a discolored kind of looking creature, and it will almost look kind of flush with the branch, but it will kind of be a different shape than the normal spots and a different color. If you see a lot of that, chances are you probably do have scale. And scale will actually kind of only move around until they find the location that they want to settle down in, and once they do, they normally just stay there and don't ever move again. Their shell is a really hard kind of consistency, and and you won't actually kind of be able to spray it or put any kind of insecticide or fungicide on it and actually kill it. The shell will kind of serve as armor and protect the entire body that is underneath it. The only way to really get rid of scale is really hard. I mean, you really have to break the shell off and kind of take care of the plant underneath it. The only way that I really know to deal with scale is by using ladybugs, and that is just because they can actually, with their jaws, dislocate the scale and eat it, and then keep the scale from reproducing and killing any kind of larva or anything like that. So the best thing to do is to order them off eBay or online. You'll get about 1,000 or 2,000 for like $9 or $10. And then I would get like a butterfly cage, which kind of just looks like a 3D hamper that's kind of a net and kind of cloth. So you would put the plant inside of the butterfly cage, zip it up, and release the ladybugs in there, and the ladybugs will kind of swarm it and eat anything on there pest-wise. And I would keep it in there for a day or two and kind of observe it and look it over. And then after that, weather permitting, I would release the ladybugs. But caterpillars, those are a little bit easier to take care of. That's only if you're outside. Aphids, again, I would use the gnat nicks just to prevent anything from going down into the soil or from coming back up that's been laid down in there. Spider mites can also give this guy a problem. Again, you'll notice spider mites pretty early on because you'll notice maybe some spider webs kind of arcing over. You'll kind of look at it through the light and you'll see the webs all over the plant. And if you do, it's a safe bet that you do have spider mites. And the safest way to actually remove that is to actually put the plant in your bathtub and kind of shower it down. And once you start showering it down with your shower wand, or maybe outside using your garden hose, you basically want to kind of recreate a shower that can actually knock the pests down. In nature, plants have Mother Nature to come along with rain and kind of wash anything off that's on there. So the pests won't really stand a chance and they'll be washed down and the plant will be clean. Unfortunately, in your home, they don't have that option, so they need you to kind of come in and kind of shower them off, so to speak, and wash the pests off. And then you can use maybe a washcloth with any isopropyl alcohol in there and kind of wipe it down. And then if you see it again, I would probably get some insecticide or an insecticidal soap and kind of spray it down kind of conservatively. You don't want to put too much on there, but a little bit will kind of go a long way with it. Fertilizer, they probably don't need a whole lot. If they do, kind of early spring, leaf mold is going to be MOLD, kind of a mold. Will actually benefit the plant, and that's basically just leaves that have been kind of compressed and broken down. You can make your own leaf mold if you look it up online. A lot of people will put them in kind of the black plastic bags and just kind of agitate them every couple of days and kind of get them to break down a little bit into kind of like a little slime, kind of a gooey consistency, and you can kind of place that in your pots outside. Of course, you don't want to do it inside because it can attract bugs. And it probably does need to be aired out a little bit so it doesn't sting. But any kind of regular fertilizer will really do the trick. It is a tree, so I would use a bonsai fertilizer. Just remember that the phosphorus in fertilizer is going to stimulate your root system. Potassium will aid in flower and fruit production, and the nitrogen promotes healthy foliage. So the NPK, I would make sure that they are like a 10-10-10 or maybe a 20-20-20, not one kind of over the other. You do want healthy roots, healthy foliage, and healthy fruit and flowers. So a general kind of flowering fertilizer or garden vegetable kind of fertilizer like Miracle-Gro probably will do the trick. Now, of course, one reason why this plant has always been kind of popular is in China. They tend to favor plants with a lot of blooms. The more blooms on the branch, the better. So this plant is exceptionally popular around the Chinese New Year. Again, the pussy willow is usually meant to kind of symbolize more of the feminine mystique. So it's fairly popular around the springtime. It is one of the earliest plants in the garden to actually start flowering and producing leaves and all that. So that is another reason why the plant is exceptionally popular. And then of course the flowers on there are so pretty, so a lot of people like that as well. And I know that as the tree of enchantment, if you get the little book on there, it will say that a lot of people with the pussy willows will make a wish with the tree, and then after they've made their wish, they'll tie a string around the bark or the stem, and you keep that on there until your wish has been fulfilled, and then you go back in and cut that off. But if you do, you make sure you kind of want to tie it a little loose. If it takes several months for your wish to come true, you don't want your tree to kind of bulk out a little bit and have the string kind of cutting into it, or cutting a branch off or something like that. So keep that in mind as well. And with growers and farmers of the like, the plants do produce a lot of pollen and nectar. So these plants are not only popular with the farmers and growers or collectors of trees like that, but also popular with bees and any other kind of pollinating insects. So it is a great plant to be planted out in the yard, because it will benefit any kind of beneficial pollinators as well. Now, if the plant is planted outside, about every 3 to 5 years you're able to kind of cut the plant back to kind of its bigger stems. And this is mostly just due to if you want to kind of keep the smaller shape, but I don't really see any need for that unless it is kind of outside and you want to kind of keep it in more of a compact space and don't really have a whole lot of room, a smaller yard or something like that. You are able to cut it back every 3 to 5 years, almost to the stem, just the kind of the bigger branches, maybe to about here, kind of so, and that will help it keep its compacted shape. Now, if it is a bonsai and you have it in its pot and you want to keep it on the smaller side, trimming the roots back fairly low will actually keep the plant kind of small as well. So I know that, like, if you have it in a pot and you don't want to go any kind of bigger, you can remove up to about 75% of the roots, and that will actually not harm the plant at all. So if you're needing to keep it small in its pot, just remember you can trim up to about 2/3 of the roots without actually hurting the plant, and that will actually keep it on the smaller side as well. Well guys, that's really all I had to say about Salix, caprea, pendula, or the American pussy willow, or just a weeping pussy willow rather. This plant is a beautiful, gorgeous plant. I really do like the way it looks, the way its foliage is coming in, especially with the flowers. Now I know as it's getting closer to spring, a lot of this will fall off, and it mostly will just be kind of the beautiful green foliage. As you can tell, the the branches are trained down now. As the newer ones come in, a lot of them on top will try to grow up. Any of them that do kind of go vertical, you can remove, just kind of cut off with your sanitized pruning shears. And any of them that kind of come out a little bit and you need to train down, I've heard people say that a good way to train them, as they are kind of coming out and they get kind of a stem look to them, but they are kind of a fresh green kind of colored stem, you can tie fishing line around it and add fishing kind of weights to it, just enough to kind of train it to go down. I've seen other people take clothespins and kind of put them on there to kind of keep the branches and keep that kind of pendulum kind of look to it, the weeping look that you want to go for. So there will be a little bit of training for these branches as well, but for the first year I'll plan to let this tree just kind of free reign and go all out, so I can see what I'm kind of working with there. And as it gets into the winter time of next year is when I'll probably prune it. You really kind of want to prune these plants in about the fall, late fall, early winter. That way all the leaves are gone and you're kind of left with the skeleton, so that you can actually see which areas you want to remove or anything like that. If you do it in the spring and summertime when all this foliage is coming in, you can probably hurt the plant if you remove too much, but also you really won't be able to see a whole lot, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of guesswork in there as well. But other than that, that's really all I know about this plant. As I was saying, I haven't had too much luck with these guys, but I will keep you updated with this plant and let you know how everything's kind of going, what I've learned, and I'll probably do that whenever I go ahead and repot it. So make sure you guys kind of stay tuned for that, and make sure you watch my next video on it. But until then guys, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what you think of the plant. Let me know if you all have any kind of bonsais or even if you've had any kind of success or failures with this plant. Like I said, I've only had it once and it died, so I'm hoping to kind of find a little bit more information about this plant. If you have anything that's kind of worked for you, please feel free to let me know. I am in the area of kind of looking for the knowledge, so let me know anything that you do kind of find out about the plant. It is greatly appreciated. Don't be shy, leave me a comment, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime I've uploaded a new video. Well guys, you all take it easy and have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.